Ask a Theravada practitioner to name their history's most important philosopher, and they point to a 5th century monk named Buddhaghosa, the voice of the Buddha. He is celebrated as the man who saved the original teachings, yet his legacy contains a deep irony. In the process of saving the tradition, he may have quietly rewritten it. In the 5th century, Theravada Buddhism faced an existential crisis. Rival Mahayana schools were surging across India, fueled by sophisticated new philosophies composed in classical Sanskrit. These schools were winning debates and attracting followers with a language that the older Theravada tradition struggled to match. The vulnerability of the Theravada school was logistical as much as philosophical. Over centuries of migration and war, the foundational Indian commentaries that explained their core scriptures had been lost. This left the tradition without a unified intellectual defense. Without a way to reconcile their ancient teachings with the rapid developments of Indian thought, the Theravada school was on the verge of being swallowed by history. Buddhaghosa was a brilliant convert, a former Vedic scholar who realized that the missing commentaries might still exist in Sri Lanka. He traveled across the sea to the great monastery at Anuradhapura, hoping to find the ancient texts that had vanished from the mainland. He found a massive library of commentaries preserved in the local Sinhala language. Buddhaghosa proposed a monumental task. He would synthesize these sprawling, aging records into a single comprehensive commentary written in Pali, the shared scriptural language of the entire Buddhist world. The elder monks were skeptical of this foreign scholar. To test his worth, they gave him a single difficult prompt: explain the essence of the entire path based on just 2 verses. Buddhaghosa responded by writing the Visuddhimagga, or the Path of Purification. This text was so comprehensive that the monks immediately granted him access to their full library. By passing their test, Buddhaghosa created the single most influential work in Theravada history, a text that would define the school's orthodoxy for the next 1,500 years. The original discourses of the Buddha are often poetic and flexible, leaving room for interpretation. Buddhaghosa replaced that flexibility with a rigid, formalist method, using the Abhidhamma to categorize every mental state and every moment of experience with mathematical precision. This obsession with precision led him to a theory of the mind that broke away from his contemporaries. Most classical Indian philosophers saw the mind as a passive mirror that simply reflected objects. Buddhaghosa saw it as something far more active. He pioneered a view we call attentionalism. He argued that attention is the primary driver of cognition. It is the faculty that actively selects and illuminates the pathways of our thoughts, rather than just waiting for external stimuli to arrive. This framework from the 5th century bears a striking resemblance to modern concepts like working memory and the global workplace theory of consciousness used in cognitive science today. Buddhaghosa wasn't trying to be a modern scientist. He was trying to categorize spiritual liberation, but by applying such rigorous logic to the mind, he ended up engineering a sophisticated psychological framework that was centuries ahead of its time. The deepest irony of the Visuddhimagga is found in its meditation instructions. While claiming to preserve the oldest traditions, Buddhaghosa introduced specific mechanics that are entirely absent from the Buddha's original discourses. He invented a new technical vocabulary for the progress of the mind, defining distinct levels like access concentration and absorption concentration. These specific stages became the standard map for meditators, even though the Buddha never used these terms. He also shifted the focus toward kasinas, external objects like a colored disc or a flame. While earlier texts focused on broad mindfulness, Buddhaghosa emphasized narrowing the focus down to these single points of concentration. In his effort to document the orthodox path, Buddhaghosa ended up replacing the original instructions for Buddhist meditation with his own refined technical system. Once his Pali translation was finished, legend says Buddhaghosa collected the original Sinhala manuscripts and burned them. This may be a myth, but it accurately reflects the historical result. The original sources were discarded and forgotten. From that point on, his Pali synthesis became the absolute authority. No one could go back to the older commentaries to check his work. Buddhaghosa's interpretation became the tradition. This standardization actually saved the school. By providing a unified set of texts in Pali, the shared language of ancient intellectuals, Theravada monks finally had the tools to debate and survive alongside the larger rival traditions in India. By replacing the physical archives of the past, he provided the structural framework that has allowed the Theravada tradition to maintain its identity for 1,500 years. This historical influence reached peak in the 18th and 20th centuries in Myanmar. Monks there launched a massive effort to revive the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation, which had almost disappeared. To reconstruct the practice, these monks followed the instructions laid out in the Visuddhimagga. Most modern practitioners believe they are following the Buddha's original words, but they are often actually following the specific system Buddhaghosa compiled. His 5th century psychological theories now guide the daily mental exercises of millions of people in meditation centers around the globe. Buddhaghosa's story shows to keep a tradition alive, the preservationist must do more than copy it. He must reinvent how it understands itself.